2023 has been a rough year in politics. In January, House Republicans voted 15 times before selecting a new speaker. Kevin McCarthy was later pushed out of the job and replaced by Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Meantime, recent CBS News polling shows President Biden's approval is just 41%. Although inflation is falling, our numbers show 62% of Americans disapprove of his handling of the economy. And early legislative successes have been overshadowed by the Republican impeachment inquiry in the House, the war in the Middle East, and the crisis at the southern border. Also this year, 4 indictments were brought against former President Donald Trump, but he still holds a sizable lead in the race for the Republican presidential nomination. Here with analysis of the year in politics is Zak Hudak. He's a CBS News politics reporter. Zach, with just 3 weeks until the Iowa caucuses, do the former president's opponents have a path to the party nomination?
Catherine, there is a path, but all the paths that are there are narrow ones. Probably the most likely one would be for Nikki Haley, and that would be for her to finish in second place in Iowa, but then somehow potentially overcome former President Trump in New Hampshire, where in our latest CBS poll, she's 15 points away from him, and the margin of error is 5 points. So Chris Christie has 10 points in that state, and if Chris Christie got out of the race, or if Nikki Haley stole some of his voters, which they seem to share a lot of the same demographics, she would be in striking distance of former President Trump. From there, they'd go to Nevada, where President Trump sort of has a hold on the state. Very hard for any candidate to nick him there. But then to South Carolina, Nikki Haley's home state, where maybe she could pull it out and win. So that's the most likely path, but it is still a relatively narrow path.
Yeah, a lot of obstacles there, a lot of hurdles to overcome for sure. So could former President Trump's legal and ballot challenges encourage his opponents to stay in the race longer or get out?
You know, it may give them hopes, Catherine, that he will be somehow prevented from becoming the nominee or becoming the president again, giving them a reason to stay in the race. But the reality on a more practical level, I think, is that the longer he continues to deal with these court challenges, more and more the former president will continue to dominate the news cycle. And one of the byproducts of that is that he will continue to out-fundraise these other GOP candidates, and he will just continue to suck all of the oxygen out of the conversation and be, way more on the radar of voters in these states. So while in theory it may encourage the other GOP challengers to stay in the race, the reality is that it will probably lead to their demise sooner.
Well, I know, because there's so much airtime to all the Trump cases. I mean, it keeps him out in front of voters, whether they like him or they don't. So in your mind, which GOP candidates do you think get out of the race first, and what's the ripple effect?
Well, I think we have been waiting for Asa Hutchinson to get out of the race for quite some time. It's unclear when that'll happen. He's running a very lean campaign, but I think that could come at any time. And then Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis have both gone so all in on Iowa that if one of those two guys does not have a strong showing in that state, it's likely they'll have no choice but to get out rather soon after. So they would be the other ones to watch as the primary season heats up.
And in the final minute that we've got here, let's turn to President Biden. How does he overcome these low polls and, age and inflation? Is that right, that they're his biggest challenges?
They certainly are his biggest challenges. We see in poll after poll that Americans care more than anything right now about the economy and about high prices. And in some ways, the president and his administration have remedied those problems. They have brought down the rate of inflation. That's not something that Americans feel. They're still feeling prices continuing to go up, albeit at a slower rate. So that is a tremendous hurdle. And on the age topic, the vice president, Kamala Harris, is not particularly popular, even among Democrats. So that creates a situation where they fear that if for some reason he cannot run, she will step in. So those are major hurdles that he needs to overcome. And I think what his campaign is trying to do is hammer home and really drive home to voters that Donald Trump is a dangerous potential person to be back in the White House, and that Joe Biden is the most likely person to keep him out of the White House. That was in many ways their message in 2020. I think they're reverting back to it because it was successful in 2020, and now they have more fuel to argue why Donald Trump would be dangerous.
Zak Hudak, thank you for your reporting from Pittsburgh.